Good evening, Gavin Francis. Thank you so much for joining Fife Libraries. First of all, I know you've been working through the COVID pandemic, so how are you? How is everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an atrocious year, hasn't it? It's been really terrible for everyone. Yeah, I work part-time as a GP in Edinburgh, and I have a practice where I work 3 days a week. And then I also do out-of-hours sessions, often in West Lothian. I
Yeah,
do locums every so often in Orkney, 2 or 3 times a year.
yeah.
And I work as a locum from time to time in the access practice in the grass market in Edinburgh for people who are homeless. And so across those 4 different roles, I've seen the complete transformation of my profession and this great difficulty in trying to keep the rest of the NHS show on the road in the face of COVID. So it's been a challenging year.
Yeah,
But we're speaking, it's February 2021. The vaccines are rolling out. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm very optimistic for the summer ahead.
that's fantastic. And you've written a book during the pandemic as well, is that right? Intensive care?
Yeah, that's right. I had 2 books out this year because I had a travel book that was actually written back in 2018, early 2019,
Mm.
called Island Dreams. It was supposed to come out in May
Oh,
of 2020, and then we had to postpone it. And
yeah.
then over the course of this year, I've written an account of the year so far called
Mhm.
Intensive Care, which starts in January 13th, when I first heard about this virus. And
Wow.
the narrative so far of the hardback, anyway, takes us up to November and the beginning of the approval of the vaccines, and us starting to plan the vaccine rollout.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the arc of the year.
yeah. So, I mean, obviously your writing and your medical career go hand in hand. So,
Yeah, very much. And my kids are still young, so when I'm not in the clinic through the week, I'm at home with the kids. And so this year has been very tricky in terms of all the school closures. I've been
okay, yes, I can hear you. Yeah,
learning a lot about fractions and
yeah.
polar bear biology and that kind of thing.
Well, that, Antarctica is up your street, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, we have your book, Adventures in Human Being, in the Reading Groups collection, and it's always a real favourite. And I've read it, and I love it, and it's so thoughtful. Is there anything you can tell our readers about it in particular, or anything you'd like to say about it?
But Adventures in Human Being. So my first 2 books were travel books. One was about the Arctic, and then one that you alluded to was about the Antarctic, True North and Empire Antarctica. And they were written about a period in my life before I was settled in one place, working in one clinic, before I'd had kids. And when I was working as a GP in Edinburgh and living a much more settled life, I was thinking about how much I love travel,
Yeah,
and how travel is often about taking new perspectives, exploring new ideas. It's about taking in the history of a place, the culture of a place, and relating contemporary encounters about that place. And I feel very much actually that every day in the clinic I travel too. I travel through the stories of other people. I travel through their lives. I travel
yeah,
through a kind of physical topography of their bodies.
yeah.
And so I wanted to write a completely different kind of travel book, which was about the body.
Wow.
And it was such a lovely book to write. It was a real pleasure to sit down and think about interesting stories from my 20 odd years working in medicine,
Yeah,
think about the history of the way that we understand the body, how it's transformed and changed, thinking about different kind of cultural ideas about the body from around the world. And the book starts at the head and talks about the face, and then goes down limbs, chest, abdomen, pelvis, exploring all these different kinds of stories about the body, both through my medical training and through the history of ideas.
yeah. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. I loved the description of when you first held a brain, and how you described how it was heavy.
Mm.
That was fascinating.
Yeah, second year medical school, and we
Yeah,
used to do neuroanatomy up in Teviot Place in Edinburgh. And I still remember, I still can kind of feel it. It was
yeah,
quarter of a century ago now, and putting my hands into this bucket with this brain in it. and lifting it out and thinking kind of what a privilege this is, how wonderful somebody has
Yeah.
donated their body to science for us to learn, and I can
Yeah.
try and get my head around the idea that all somebody's experiences, their emotions, their thoughts, their memories were all somehow coded into this piece of meat.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Because the mind and the brain that's such a massive question, isn't it? And I guess you could go into questions about the soul. Where is the soul? The brain itself is it's quite mysterious, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the chapters of Adventures as a Human Being is about a brief stint I did working as a trainee neurosurgeon.
Mm-hmm.
So very much the kind of physical aspect, the physicality of the brain. And one of the chapters is much more about psychiatry.
Yeah.
And it's about the treatment of depression with electroconvulsive therapy and that kind of physical impact on the brain. So rather than a scalpel, using electricity to try and change somebody's vision of the world, so that their emotions and their mood.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you know, there's different kinds of ideas. Like I use the liver. The chapter about the liver explores the fairy tales that we all learn in the nursery, and how they eloquently explore this kind of dream of transformation that we have. Things like Snow White or Sleeping Beauty. The one on the lungs is all about how ideas of lightness and levity are tied up with very old Greek kind of ideas that we were bathed in a spirit which kept us alive. People in the Greek times believed that your air that you breathed in was a kind of vital spirit that itself animated you.
Yeah.
Right down to the hip replacements and the titanium alloys that we use in those. One of the chapters is about that.
Yeah, you're getting into alchemy.
Yeah, there's a chapter on alchemy in my subsequent book, Shapeshifters, all about people used to believe that they could make themselves young again, rejuvenate themselves.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Fantastic. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, what was when you were growing up? How did you end up with these dual careers? How did you get into writing? What came first, or is it a chicken and an egg situation?
No, I trained in medicine in Edinburgh. I grew up in Dunfermline, and I went to Edinburgh Medical School, and I was always a great reader. Right from the earliest years, I was in that beautiful old Carnegie Library in Dunfermline, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor because I wanted to know all about the human body, and I wanted a skill that would take me around the world that I'd be able to travel with. But I also loved books and words, and it was natural for me to want to try and write the book that I would most want to pick up in the bookshelf or on the library shelf. It wasn't until actually I was qualified and I was in my late 20s when I started to write, because it was only then I actually had the time. Until then I was at medical school, and then I was in junior doctor training and so on. So it was definitely medicine first.
Yes.
Always with this love of literature and love of trying to write the most concise, eloquent sentence to communicate an experience that I could.
Yeah, but I mean, they go together so beautifully, the way you describe things, and it really is. It's like a marriage, like a proper marriage of the way your mind works. It's fantastic. So I know you've spent a lot of time traveling, and obviously the Arctic and Antarctica, but you traveled before that. I was reading that you traveled for 10 years. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, 10 years I was traveling on and off, because in the old days, when you were the old days, but in the old days when you were training in medicine, the jobs were all 6-month standalone posts. Okay. So what I used to do was I would take a 6-month job, and then I would go traveling for the other 6 months. Then I'd come back and do another 6-month job, and then I'd go traveling again. And when I was in Antarctica, for example, as the base doctor at a research station, that was just over a year I was there, but there was an awful lot of traveling to get there and to come back.
Yes.
So yeah, I have done a lot of traveling. I did an 18-month trip as well by motorcycle with my wife from Scotland to New Zealand. So that was a big chunk of travel.
So what route did you take then? Or I mean, obviously you can't have motorcycled across the water. Which way did you get down then?
We went down through France, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Jordan, Syria. Then I had to skip over to Pakistan, China, India, Southeast Asia, then to Australia, and then over to New Zealand.
And that took how long? 18 months?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you seen that program, Race Across the World?
No.
No, they do that. They start off in London, and then they have to get to, I think the last one was Singapore, and they can only go via land or sea. So what are you working on at the moment?
Well, just now, because of lockdown and the school closures and so on, I've not had a lot of time to write. I've been working on a lot of short book reviews. I write book reviews in various papers, and they've been taking up a lot of my time. I'm starting to think about what I'd like to write next, but I'm still at the phase of jotting down ideas. I've got a big folder on my computer full of random ideas, and I like jotting down things all the time, and I put them in, and then every so often I look through it and see what sticks. You know, when you find a new subject to write a book, it's kind of like falling in love a little bit. It's like something just gets hold of your mind and you can't stop thinking about it, and you start looking forward to going to think about it and to write about it.
Yes.
And so I feel like I don't decide pretty much what I'm going to write about next. It kind of decides for me.
So the book writes you rather than you write it?
Yeah, definitely. It feels like the subject takes me, and I kind of just have to submit to that feeling.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. In my other life, I'm an artist, so that makes sense to me completely. Generally, I mean, in normal times, in non-COVID times, do you have what's your writing process? Do you have a set amount of words that you write per day or per week? Or
no, as I say, it's usually just a couple of days a week while the kids are in school that I write, and yeah, I enjoy it so much. Some people would describe it as quite motivated, but I don't see it that way. I just see it as something that I really look forward to doing. And so I take the kids to school, get home. I don't bother with the breakfast dishes. I just sit down and start to write.
Perfect.
And usually, I'll do 5 or 6 hours straight and then look up and realize it's time to go and get the kids.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you because I know how busy you are, but thank you so much for talking to us at OnFife Libraries, and thank you on behalf of everybody for all of the work.
It's a pleasure as somebody who benefited myself from Fife Libraries as a child hugely. I don't know if I would be a writer today if it wasn't for Fife Libraries.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. Well, that's a fantastic place to end. So thank you, Gavin Francis, very much. And hopefully see you again soon.